Dr. Randall, the Soul Doctor, author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, shares her 40 years of experience as a cross-cultural practitioner, medical futurist, and expert in 20 different modalities of healing, along with amazing interviews with some of the leading minds in medicine and big thinkers in all walks of life. The stories of our lives are the woven energies of our soul's paths. They feed and ignite the spiritual light that nourishes the universal soul, the one mind, the cosmic consciousness where we all come together. This podcast is going to be a deep dive into the personal stories of people who have made significant contributions to the planet. What formed them? What moved them to become these leaders and innovators that inspire us so? Hello, Olivia.
Hello, Dr. Randall. How are you?
Hi. I love you so much.
I love you too.
I met Olivia at Howard Wills, our healer, our light in Kauai. Was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago or 4 years ago?
It was at the beginning of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 years ago.
3 years ago. So,
but it seems like we've known each other forever.
I know. And it seems longer ago than that. But... And
thank God, I'm very lucky to have you as my doctor, my friend.
Oh, thank you. And I'm very lucky to have you as my friend.
Oh.
I think of Olivia as full of light. And she shares that light with all of us. And that's why I've chosen her to be on my show. I mean, apart from the fact I just love her and she's a wonderful actress, but she shares her light through her acting and through her book, through her social media. I mean, everybody that follows her, everybody, if you see pictures of her, you see the light emanating from her eyes. If you see her with her fans, they talk all about love and light and good things on the planet. And so she's brought about quite a bit of positive energy on the planet. And that's why she's with us today. That's why I've chosen her, because she is a light and she has made a difference through her work here. And she continues to, just by her mere existence. And, there's a particular picture I think of where she went to do a book signing, standing in front of all of these people who just seem lit up by her, and everyone loves her so. So I want to just say a few things, if that's okay, Olivia.
Yes, please. This is so lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to tell people just how special she is. She was chosen out of 800 actresses in London alone, not the rest, even counting the rest of the world, to play the role of Juliet in Franco Zeffirelli's film version of Romeo and Juliet. She won a Golden Globe for that and a David D. Donatello Award for her performance. Just phenomenal. She gained international recognition, as she should have, for that role and her work in that film. She reunited with Zeffirelli in the
miniseries.
The miniseries of Jesus of Nazareth, and Mary, where she played Mary, Mother of Jesus, of God, in 1977. And then she went on to do more religious roles. She played Mother Teresa of Calcutta in 2003, which was a biographical film. And she won another award for character and morality in the Entertainment Award in May of 2007. And it had been her dream and wish to portray Mother Teresa, and it came true. And so she went on and played the Virgin Mary. So she's got triple threat there in the mothers, the mothers of God. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
And she's also an author And she wrote The Girl on the Balcony, which is her memoir. And Olivia Hussey finds Life After Romeo and Juliet. And that was released in 2018, and you can find that on Amazon. But Olivia spent her life spreading goodness and light on the screen and off, and she still does as an animal activist, human rights activist, amongst other things. Just her mere presence, like I said, lights people up. And the planet is lucky to have her. She is always a beacon of positivity and light to all of us, and me especially. I always get a warm, fuzzy heart when I talk to my Olivia.
Oh,
So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you.
Although I'm gonna turn the tables a little bit here, because I want to find out. I want to come out of you. Like, where did it all begin? Like, go back to where you were born, and what was the situation there? I think it was Argentina, wasn't it?
I was born in Buenos Aires, Argentina. There's a very strong English community there.
Oh.
And my father was Argentinian. He was one of the old style, very respected tango singers there. And my mother was a legal secretary who typed something like 100 and something words a minute. And that was her passion. And my grandmother taught English to young people there. So I was actually half English, half Argentinian. So I grew up speaking Spanish and English and feeling Argentinian and British. Yes. I used to walk around when I was 4 with a towel on my head, pretending to be a nun. My mother told me that. And then one day I said, if I was going to act, if I could be a great actress, I could pretend to be a nun and be a good person, but I wouldn't actually have to be a nun. And so my mother said, that's a good idea. But of course, nothing happened until we left Argentina when I was 6 years old. My brother was 5. And we took a big ship and had to say goodbye to our father, who at the time, women didn't have a lot of rights there. And at the time, we couldn't leave the country without my father's permission and signature. So he did do that, and he came to the ship, and it was emotional, because to be torn from my dad, I was very close to him.
So why did you leave?
We left because my mother, being half English, really, my father was the love of her life, and they split up when my mother had me, and a year and a half later, she had my brother Andrew. And they just weren't getting along. And so my mother couldn't bear to be in the same town with my father and not be with him. So it was very painful. But we had some relatives in England, and my mother said, I want to give my children a chance at spreading their wings and seeing how other people live in other countries. And so she took a big chance. She was only in her late 20s, and she took this chance to come to England, to go to England with her 2 babies. I was 6 and Drew was 5, and so we left Argentina, we left my grandmother, and we left all my uncles and aunties. I've got so many cousins on the Spanish side, as well as the English side, who all live in Argentina. And we took this big ship for 3 weeks to England. Which, when we arrived on a very, very foggy day, and we'd never seen fog before. I just remember, there's things you remember about your childhood. And it was very cold and seemed very austere after the beauty of Buenos Aires, which is almost, I describe it like a bigger Paris. It's just so full of life with the tango and food and just people are passionate there. And in England, people are passionate, but they're very reserved. They take a long time to accept you, but once they do, they're there. Yeah. So that's how we started. And the person who was supposed to be an auntie to us, what she did was she let us move into this little house, 3 of us. And my mother got a job immediately with the Argentinian embassy in London, because she was a paralegal secretary. She was really good at the typing and the dictation. And so she'd leave us at home, you know, when we didn't have school, she'd leave us at home with this auntie, and she'd go to the embassy and do her job, and she paid this auntie to have us, to take care of us. And because she worked for the Argentinian embassy, they'd give her big cuts of great meat from Argentina. As you know, the beef, I'm a vegetarian now, but as you know, the beef in South America is very, very popular, and everybody has asados, they're called, where they fry up meat, and you know, it's a very much part of the culture. And my mother didn't know this, but when she would go to work, this lady would lock my brother and I up in the bedroom. And she wouldn't let us out of the bedroom. And she'd give us a bowl of cereal for lunch. And she and her children would eat the meat and eat everything. And
oh, my goodness.
It was just awful. And then she said, well, I want to move, this lady told my mother. And she said, why can't I sell you this little house? And my mother had her life savings with her. And my mother was very, very naive. I think that's where I get my naive streak, where I'm 100% trusting of people. That's been my lesson in this lifetime. And I think it was her lesson, which she never truly learned, because she was just so kind and so sweet. And
you know, it's funny you say that, because trust is one of the most important steps in healing. And you didn't have that obstruction.
I didn't. No.
So
and the person I was
most,
and then at the very beginning, Dr. Randall, I just remembered, my grandfather was a very big influence on me, because my father was never around. He'd come visit every couple of weeks for an afternoon, but he wasn't really a staple. My grandfather was amazing. My grandfather passed away of stomach cancer and suffered a great deal for 2 years. And I was a little girl, and I was so close to him. And I always have these memories of him, you know, so he was the first person that I loved that died. But, you know, not knowing my grandmother and my mother and my auntie, none of them knew, you know, how to handle death with children. And they told Drew and I that I was crying for my grandfather, and they said, he's gone away on a long trip. They didn't tell me that he'd gone to live with God and the angels, or anything you can say, you know. And so that was my first, that I remember, when I was working with Howard, the inner work. You know, I remember that was the first big trauma I had, was when my grandfather passed away, and they told me he'd left and gone. So that was, that I remember. I don't even know if I put that in the book. And by the way, my book, I'm a co-writer, because my son Alex wrote it with me.
Yes, that's right.
Yes, he did all the extra work. We spent two and a half years on writing it. So, from memories, and, you know, my memory comes back in spurts, and then I forget. You know, it's this whole thing about getting older, I think. You just tend to review a lot. And
well, memories are like that, though. They do come.
They do.
Yeah, they get triggered. And you go, oh, I remember.
Yeah, exactly. A feeling or a smell.
So what happened then? I mean, how old were you then?
I was, I think, just turned 7 when we first came to Argentina. I think I had my birthday on the way.
Didn't you start acting really young?
Oh, yes. I wanted to act. And when I was 9 years old, actually 8 and a half, I said, Mummy, there's drama schools here. And she got an appointment at one of the biggest drama schools in London, which was the Italia Conti Stage School, which is still there today. And I believe Miss Conti actually is still alive. She's 100 and something years old.
Wow.
I know. And it was a private school. And of course, we didn't have a lot of money for that. And I just had to tell you that my mother agreed to buy that little house from this auntie. And she gave her the whole deposit. And then they left. And my mother said, we can start fresh now with our little house. And she hadn't signed one piece of paper with this lady. So we went to sleep, and in the middle of the night, they came back and they knocked on the door, and they said, we want you, the 3 of you, to leave, and you've got no proof that you paid.
Oh, that's horrible.
So I don't even know if I put that in the book, but that's what happened. And so we were completely traumatized. We went to a place called Earl's Court in England, and my mother had to rent a 2-bedroomed little flat that, which we shared a bathroom with people. Oh, it was awful, awful. We were very young, but we all remember that, And so that was the first time my mother's kindness was rewarded with somebody stealing, And so our trust, Drew and I really don't trust people easily. And I think it comes from all of that. I found out about the Italia Conti Stage School, and I said, "Please, Mummy, let me just have a meeting with Miss Conti. She's there on the paper." And I was young, I was actually almost 9 by the time she got that meeting, and I couldn't really afford the fees. And I went in there, and I was 9, and I was particularly short for my age. But I was very feisty. I lost that as I got older, I was very because I had nothing, so I had nothing to lose. And I just wanted to act. I wanted to be the greatest actress ever. I wanted to get on the stage and forget everything that hurt me and just become somebody else. That was my whole thing. So I remember going into Miss Conti's study, which was right across the hall from the office, a big place in Clapham North in London it was. And it was it's Brixton and Clapham North were considered like ghetto kind of things. Here it would be like a ghetto, like Watts, that kind of thing. But this beautiful school was there in the middle of it. So I walked in, and Miss Conti had gray hair, and she was very tiny, and she wore like 2-piece suits, in different colors and things. She was really lovely, and she was sitting behind this huge desk, and she came forward and she said, "Well, hello, how are you? It's nice to meet you." And "It's such a joy and such a pleasure to meet you too." And she said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm almost 9. And why do you want to act?" And I said, "Because there's nothing else on earth that I'm supposed to do. And that's what I feel, and I will be a great actress. And if you give me a chance, I will, because I saw on your writing paper, you've got all the names of these wonderful English actors like Jack Hawkins, Sir Jack Hawkins. And I one day I will be on your writing paper." And she just looked at me and she said, "How old are you?" And I said, "I'm almost 9. And she said, "You know what, Olivia, I like your spunk." And she said, "Okay, we'll come up with some kind of agreement." And she allowed me into the school, and my mother paid whatever she could. And the rest, I said, "I promise you, if you have me, I will be working. I will work very hard." And I talked my way in,
You told the truth.
I did. Something about me, I'll tell you. It's not, I don't know why, I don't tell lies. I mean, if I can tell a little fib to somebody that is hurting, just to make them feel a little better, that's one thing. But when it comes to major lies I can't do it. I mean, I literally, it comes out, I start to fumble and I start to get nervous. And, it's got to be about truth my whole life.
I'm the same.
Animals, beauty, love.
Yeah.
If I haven't learned anything else, I'm almost 70 years old now. I'm proud of it. I've earned those 69 years. If I've learned nothing else, if I have one thing to carry from my whole life so far, I would say, if you can be anything, be kind.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the big picture. Take a deep breath and just know that we're here in just such a transitory way, and whatever we do in this lifetime is what we take to the other side when we go, because there's no such thing as death. And I knew that when I was a little girl.
Yes.
I'd go walking in the streets in Argentina where I lived and pushing my bike, and I'd just go into a state of bliss when I was a little girl, and my hands would be on the handlebars and I'd be walking and I would feel my body swell, and then I would look at my hands and they were way down low on the handlebars and I was just as big as the sky. And those were feelings of awareness, I believe. And my feeling of, I've always felt that there is a higher power, that there's something bigger than all of us. And so whenever that's what's helped me survive all the hardships, is when things get too unbearable, I just look up and I say, "I can't handle this, God. I'm giving it to you because I'm not strong enough for this." And right. I find things clear up when you do that. I mean, right now with the pandemic and everything that's going on, more people need to start meditating, praying, just being kind. It's not about political parties or anything else. It's about, we're all underneath it all, Dr. Randall, underneath all our personalities. I believe we're all part of this one divine consciousness.
That's my
we're
message.
Just different, right? It's just, and mine, I guess, because it's just, how could it be anything else? We all have the same feelings, emotions, just different triggers. And religion, I respect them all. I don't have any one religion.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever leads you on your path to the ultimate goal is what it's all about. It's not what you acquire in this lifetime. It's what you leave behind and what you do to help others. And, it's not like I stand in front of 1,000 people and say, do the, I all my life since I was little, when Romeo and Juliet plummeted Leonard and I into complete, worldwide fame and being mobbed, and we were teenagers, but I never once, and neither did Leonard, we never once turned around and said to someone, go away, you're just being aggressive, because we knew that they were coming from excitement and they were seeing teenagers that they related to. And so it was always just kindness,
Mm-hmm.
It's very important to realize the jealousy, all of this stuff just passes and it's not really important.
No,
the important
compassion, love,
absolutely,
oneness.
Yeah.
It's what it's all about. And
well, look at Howard. I mean, when I first met Howard, he came to pick us up at the airport when we went to South Carolina to see him, this incredible being of light he is, just as you are. These beings of light that help mankind. And his air conditioning was broken in his car. And I'll never forget the image of Howard. He was always dressed in white jeans, white. And he stepped out of the car and we were just coming out of the airport and he was sweating, from the heat in South Carolina and no air conditioning. And he said, welcome. It's all love and bliss. And in that moment, we all felt this shot of just bliss and ecstasy and was smiling, and that was 18 years ago already, but he was, oh my goodness, I can't say enough about him.
Right. Howard Wills in Kauai. You can look at his website. You can call him. He'll help you. He's going to be on the show too, coming up.
Well, I say his prayers every morning. He's got his prayers of gratitude and healing that are together with your supplements and your knowledge and wisdom and your healthy eating habits. And, I just can't thank you both enough. I owe my life to my faith and my teachers, and you're one of them, Dr. Randall. So
thank you.
Yeah, it's the truth.
So where did you go then from?
Then I did Conti's and I auditioned for 2 years, but
that's why she's 100. It's because she's living her passion. She's living her purpose. That's her purpose.
Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah, she was just wonderful. And she took a chance on me, and I didn't book things at first because I did song and movement, acting, diction, voice projection, ballet, tap dancing. You had to do the all-around thing. My mother, bless her heart, I could barely afford, and most of the people there had money, because it was a private school. And my mother had to save up to get me my leotard and tights. And I had 2 changes of clothes. I had a skirt and 2 shirts. Seriously, and 1 little summer dress. And, and it was unbelievable what happened. It was just a gift from God,
Yes.
And then I went to lots of auditions, and it was nerve-wracking because it was always 50 little girls and 25 little boys to do this one commercial, or, and you did your classes in the morning, and then after lunch, you do your arts, which was always the best part. And after about 2 years of that, I was 12 years old. And there's a very big comedian in London. All English people will know who he is. His name's Charlie Drake. And he was so sweet. He was very, very funny little man, very outspoken, and he was huge. He had a television show, and one of the biggest comedians ever in England. And he was only about 5 foot, I'd say 5'1" or 5 foot. He was tiny. And everyone said, oh, Charlie Drake's starting a new 6-week show. And we were all so excited, and they wanted some older teenagers and they wanted the younger people, I was one of the younger people. And so we got sent to one of the theatres in London for the audition, and we all walked out on the stage, a big long line of us. And where the producers and people were sitting, it was blacked out. And they'd just say your name, please, in line, in file. And that was one of the biggest auditions I'd been on. And and I was at the end. And I looked around. I was the shortest person there, and I didn't think I had a chance of anything. I didn't know what to expect. But they had all said, prepare a little piece of Shakespeare, which I hadn't moved into Shakespeare yet. But I prepared a poem, a very famous poem called The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. And that was the only thing I had to present on the stage. And these people, they put us off into little groups, and they did little Shakespeare things and these sonnets and this and that. And then it got down to me. And I came out on the stage by myself, and they said, and what are you going to do? And I said, and I just stood there and I said, I'm going to do The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. And then I heard this little man going, ha, 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 ha. He was laughing at me, but I couldn't see him, and I stood there and the owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green. And I was 9 years old, but my arms were going and I was being dramatic and all of this, And then at the end of it, they brought everybody out on the stage, and then they said the lights went up, and we all saw that Charlie Drake was sitting there with his people, and then the producers and the people of the theatre. And then we got really nervous when we saw how many people were there. And Charlie Drake stood up and he said, the little one on the end. And I looked and I said, yes. And he said, step forward, you step forward. And then they picked certain ones. And then they said, the others, thank you so much for coming. You can go home. And so we were like, we couldn't believe, we were all so excited. And by the end of that session, we did a famous photo shoot. I should have sent you the photo because somebody posted it. It was my first time in a newspaper.
Yeah, send it.
Because I sat on his lap, and then they had the other little girls that were there, and I was sitting on his lap. And I never forgot it because he said, this little one here, her name's Olivia, and you guys better look out for her because she's going to be a big star. And for me, it was like, oh my God, Charlie Drake thinks, and it was that was the most exciting. And that was my first big break. I did 6 weeks on the Charlie Drake show. And 1 week I did ballet, and week I was tiny he'd open his hand up and I was dancing on his hand. And then they put me in a leopard skin bikini and blacked me from head to toe because I was this Aborigines the daughter of this Aborigine chief in a song. And so I had to sing and dance. And then I did something with Charlie himself. And then the others would do Shakespeare pieces to feature them. But I was always alone with Charlie Drake, which was incredible for me. And then 1 week he said, you know what I'm going to do, Olivia? I'm going to have you do your poem. I said, but my poem, you were all laughing at me. He said, no. It was so beautifully done. So they put me in an Alice in Wonderland dress. And then he was sitting there and I had to do The Owl and the Pussycat by Edward Lear. So that was my claim to fame. Yeah. And that started everything really, little by little.
That's like a dream come true.
It was a dream come true. Back then it was, because all of the drama schools had all these children in them. And, we were all in competition with each other. I mean, the Conti kids didn't wear uniforms, thank God, because I couldn't have really afforded that. But, like Corona School would have green uniforms, green and yellow, and Ada Foster's would be black and white. And, they had patchwork. So everybody was in competition because everybody wanted to book the one job, and they'd send at least from the different things, at least 100 children every time. So it was really a miracle. That was my first. Actually, I don't think I even put that in the book. I can't remember. We put so much and then had to edit everything out. So
that really affirmed for you that you
Oh, I loved it.
Going to become an actress. You knew it.
Oh, yes. I knew from a child. I knew from the time I'd carried that towel on my head.
This was the big,
yes,
Olivia,
and it's funny
from the universe,
Yes. And years later, when I met my guru, Swami Muktananda, I wanted to become a sannyasi. Everything I do 100% and then have to walk it back, and I just wanted to be a nun. that was my dream, because I really felt that I'd been a nun in another lifetime. I felt so close to anything spiritual. Mm-hmm.
And so then you played several nun-like figures, so that
I
was
did,
good.
Which was I think it was my gift from God.
Yes.
Every time it was such an honor to be able to play somebody.
And you're our gift
that was
from
so
God,
divine.
Olivia.
Oh, it was just, yeah.
So after those...
Then I did a walk-on at the Old Vic in London and a walk-on at the Aldwych. And then I got a TV show and I had my first one line, and then that's what you did in London. Nobody started acting because they wanted to become a star or a celebrity. We all started acting because there was nothing else we wanted to do. It was a passion, a calling. It was before Twitter and all of these things, Now, so many girls want to become movie stars and act, but they don't really study what they're doing. They don't know, I used to sit and watch the Hollywood films on television, the old Hollywood. I loved them, and of course you grow up there in England and you grow up with great actors like Glenda Jackson and Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Janet McTeer, who's unbelievable. And, these incredible people. And you get to work with Sir Ralph Richardson and Sir John Gielgud and, who did I work with twice? Sir Laurence Olivier, who I adored, who was wonderful, humble. And what they'd say is, leave your egos at the door, show up, know your lines, and don't bump into the furniture. And that was how we all learned to do our craft, and then we do our lessons and we do our... because if you act on stage, you have to be able to reach the back of the theater with your voice. So you have to learn breathing from the stomach so that you have resonance. And, you've just got to know, and you never show up unprepared, which so many people do now, my daughter tells me. And it's just, you've got to know. If it's a passion, you have to know everything about it, or as much as you can. And you have to always have respect for the older actors, the older musicians, because they've been there and done it. You can learn so much from them. From wisdom. Wisdom comes with age. And, if you're smart and you don't talk too much, you learn a lot more than if you just never shut up, It's like, anyway. So I was taught, when I was at my most famous and I'd work and I'd see a young actress that was there on the set and it was her first day and she was really nervous. I'd look at her and I'd just say, listen, all you do is you focus on my eyes, you breathe deeply, and you remember why you're doing this. I'm right here. If you forget your lines, don't worry. We all do. And we're all here to do the best production we can do. And that's all that matters. And then now, there's so many that I've heard that they're just so mean to the younger ones because they get jealous.
Yeah.
In England, we didn't really have that. Very few. I mean, there are some. But very few.
That leads me to something I've always wondered about is the audition process. I've often wondered, how does it feel when you have to go to these auditions? That oftentimes you may not get it, but what
most times,
mindset do you go in with, and what sort of attitude do you have so that isn't deleterious?
Well, it's really funny you say that because, as you know, my daughter India is now an actress. India loves auditions and she loves meeting people and she loves working with directors. She walks into the room and she literally becomes another person because she's fearless. But I grew up with a lot of fears because I believe I was taken away from my country and my father and everything that was my family. So I've been agoraphobic my whole life. When it got very, very bad, I was on a drug called Nardil and Librium because I couldn't leave the house without severe panic attacks, which is not good for an actress, but it would go up and down as it went. So the fact that I was even an actress was a miracle.
Tell me about the process.
When I first started, I was too young to even know what agoraphobia was, and I'd get nervous like everybody else. I mean, I'd wet myself all the time when I was nervous. I was very, very, just very emotional. As you know, I'm very reactive. That's stayed with me my whole life. And what I would do, I find auditions, especially going on tape or going into a room, just so traumatic. I mean, because what are you know, you're auditioning, they give you 2 or 3 pieces of paper. You haven't had time to look into that character, to do your homework, to do your inner work. You can't do any of that. You're just hoping they like your look and they know that you can repeat the lines. And, you know, I found it so traumatic. And that's why it was a credit to Franco when I turned 15 and I did audition for Juliet, and there were 800 girls in London alone. And when we were up in the room, we were all sharing the same costume. You know, we were up in this room waiting to go down and audition and be introduced to whoever was going to play Romeo, you know, opposite us. And we had this one little white dress. And so we, you know, put it on, went down, and Franco was so amazing because Zeffirelli, he was just such a genius. He just already knew what he wanted, but he gave you the space to just stretch yourself out and not be nervous. And I was just, you know, and Frank would just say, just darling, breathe deep. Everything's fine. You know your dialogue? Yes. I love this role. I feel Juliet, you know, and he'd say, well, then show me what you feel. And he did that with every girl. He was gentle and, you know, and not many people, you know, they say you and the rest, thank you very much, you know, because most of the time they go for looks and things. I was never very good at auditioning. Thank God Romeo and Juliet happened at 15, because after that I got offers and I got to pick what I wanted to do. And very rarely did I have to go in an audition then after that big break, because people just wanted me in their films, you know, which was very lucky. But there's actors that are really good at auditioning and going on tape, and other actors that are not that good, because you just don't really know that those 2 pages, once you've read the script and you've got the role and you're putting the wardrobe on, a whole different thing happens than would have happened at an audition where you're trying to get a part. You know, so some people are great at the audition and then they come on the set and they're like lost. You know, I worked with so many young actresses and actors that, you know, they show up on the set and they were nervous, you know. I said, but you got the job already. Relax. And they said, but getting the job was easy. And now I've got to do it. And I said, you'll do it. You'll be fine. You know, just, I know. It's just, we're all just highly sensitive people. I have great respect because actors live with rejection all the time. And I think it's something that you just have to, you know, well, I didn't get that one. Never mind. Next.
Right.
You know, you have to do that. Otherwise it can destroy you.
Right.
You just focus on what you're doing. And I mean, people give you all kinds of
just
advice.
Like life,
if you're
right?
nervous, imagine them naked. If you're, you know, but it all goes out the window, at least with me, that, you know, when I had to appear in front of people, you know, but then the moment I got the work and I was doing something, even if it was a bad film and I needed to pay my rent at that time, you know, I would just say, I've got this work to do, and I do my inner work and, you know, and show up at the set ready, willing and able, and give it as much as I could give it, no matter how bad or good the project, you know.
Right.
That's
like what I say.
Life.
Just keep swimming. Just keep swimming.
You just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And don't let, you know, and I'm so full of fears and insecurities and things, which now at this point in my life, I'm grateful not to have them. They were debilitating when I was younger. I mean, the agoraphobia, it was very, very hard to deal with.
You wouldn't have known it.
No.
It seems like once you got there, once you got on the stage, you just happened.
I forgot it. Exactly.
Yeah, that's what I mean. All that stuff
just
melted away.
It went away and I was somebody else, you know, and it sounds corny, but that's what would happen to me. I mean,
that's beautiful.
It's just, you know, it's the only thing I ever thought of doing in my whole life. The only thing that came before the acting was when I had my children. They're my priority, you know, and a great role would come and I said, no, my children are in school and I can't do that right now. I didn't really balance it because I always had a live-in housekeeper when the kids were young because I had to, because if I had to leave for a week at a moment's notice, I had to have somebody. They always had to have their continuity, go to school, meals on time, you know, love and attention. I mean, That became they were my Oscars, I always say.
Oh, yeah, they're our children. So, was there, I know you mentioned a lot of amazing actresses. Was there one actress that influenced you, that you could say really influenced you more than?
Not influenced me so much. I mean, I loved actresses like Anna Magnani, who was a great Italian actress. I had dinner with her one night with Franco, and she was pouting, and which made me think, oh, she pouts too, and she gets angry too, because I was so emotional, and she was but she was fantastic, And then I had dinner with the great Fellini and his wife, Giulietta Massina, who was in the famous La Strada, it was called. It was a film one of Fellini's best, and she was the little prostitute in it. And for some reason, Fellini took such a liking to me. He said, come and have dinner with my wife and I in Rome. I said, and there I was sitting with her, and I said, you're just the most amazing actress. And, oh, grazie, bambina. She called me. It was really, really sweet, very special. And I'll tell you who I met that I adored, Ingrid Bergman. I didn't put that in the book either. I forgot that. But one day, Franco used to throw huge parties, and it was the most amazing experience at the villa on the Appia Antica outside of Rome. And in a corner, you'd see like Monica Vitti talking to Michelangelo Antonioni. I mean, and Vanessa Redgrave, and you'd see Jane Fonda there with Roger Vadim. And I mean, it was just like a who's who of, and it was incredible. And one day I'm standing there, and everyone would stand, and then somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I turned around, and it was Ingrid Bergman.
Wow.
And my jaw dropped, because I, of course, had seen her films, and she was just so gorgeously beautiful. And she was so gentle and so humble. And she said, Olivia, I just have to tell you that you are just so divinely beautiful. And I know you're going to do the most amazing job as Juliet. And it's just a pleasure to meet you, darling.
No.
And I couldn't, but that was, to me, I thought, that's what I want to be. I want to be as great as Ingrid Bergman, but be kind and loving. Mm-hmm. And that impressed me more than that. Vanessa Redgrave was another one that was the same. I did the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie in the London Theatre. That's where Zeffirelli saw me. And I played one of the four main schoolgirls. And Vanessa she walked on like a tornado. I mean, she was just fantastic. And it was all live, and it was all, and then when we had done it almost 2 years, and we all just loved her because she treated the schoolgirls, she treated everybody with such love, and she had a great laughter and vibrancy, and she made the role come alive, which helped us. We learned a lot from her. Working with the great actors, like taking 100 acting lessons, because if you watch carefully, you pick up traits and feelings, and you see how they handle things, and it's lessons, it's wonderful. And she got a huge break from the Prime of Jean Brodie, and she did Camelot, which with Richard Harris and Franco Nero, and it was a musical. And at the time in the 60s, it was her big, big break, blow up in Camelot, because she got Camelot first. And she was leaving, and we were all devastated that she was going to leave. We were schoolgirls. And this was the Prime of Jean Brodie, and it was a huge hit at the West End in London. The Queen came to see it. The whole royal family was sitting in the front row with all their tiaras on, because it was the Queen Mother's birthday, and the Queen had asked her, what do you want to see for your birthday? And she said, the Prime of Jean Brodie. So nobody told the cast that they were going to be there. And when the lights went up, we saw the entire royal family.
Oh, that's goosebumps.
Incredible, yes. And I had a really good role. I loved to make people laugh. It was like, and then when Vanessa left that to do Camelot, we were all crying. And, she took the time out to have each schoolgirl go into her dressing room to chat to her so she could privately say goodbye to them, which I thought was so sensitive and so kind, because most people don't take the time. Things like that stay with you when you're young for your whole life. And it's funny because Vanessa was there, and her two little girls were in the dressing room. That was Natasha Richardson and Joely Richardson, who are great actresses in their own right. But they were little girls when Vanessa was acting. I mean, they were like 4 and 5 or 4 and 6, something like, running around in the dressing room. And when I went in, I just looked at her and I just said, I'm going to miss you so much. And she put her arms around me. She said, darling, you see what's happening to me right now? And I said, yes, and we're just going to be sad without you. And she said, oh, there'll be someone else. She said, but everything that's happening to me right now, Olivia, is going to happen for you too. I feel it.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, oh my God, I didn't put that in the book. In fact, I didn't remember that until I just told you. But it was just a beautiful moment, you know. And when Romeo and Juliet came out, and it was a huge success, her father was Sir Michael Redgrave, the great English stage actor. Mm-hmm. And his wife was Rachel, I think it was Kempf, a wonderful stage actress. And when Romeo and Juliet came out and it got such acclaim, I got a fan letter from Sir Michael Redgrave and his wife, just saying, we sat like children in the center row of the theater, watching you up on the screen, and my wife and I wept. Oh. You know, and I mean, imagine that. Those great actors that didn't say, I'm great and you can never follow. They said, we're so proud of you and well done. You know, that's something about English, you know. They do that.
It's also something about you, Olivia. You know, when you said you wanted to be like her, I have to say you are like her. You are kind and compassionate to everyone, despite your greatness. Thank you. I tried to be, you know. When I was young, we didn't have all the social media, so I'd hear, you know, kids, I'd take time to open, and we got so much fan mail back then because we couldn't go anywhere without Leonard and I, without being mobbed, and we were just 16 and 17, you know. It was all new. It was just, but then I'd get all these letters. Let's talk about Leonard and you for a second, and then I want to move to when you met your husband, your lovely husband. 3 children, 3 husbands, but I married nice people, so all divorces were friendly and the children were never really affected. So that's a good statement. That's honest, yes. Would you say you and Leonard were best friends? Oh, we were boyfriend and girlfriend for a while, because when we met, I was 15 and he was 16, almost 17. Mm-hmm. And then when we started shooting, he turned 17, but I was still 15. And I was 16 by the time we shot the bedroom scene at the end of the film. It took 6 months to shoot, you know, and then 9 months to loop the whole thing, you know, put the voiceover. And yes, and, you know, we did photo shoots. We were both just teenagers, but we had a blast. And we bonded. I mean, to this day, we're really close friends. You know, so Leonard's happily married. And you were in love.
Oh, yes. But we were teenagers, you know.
Oh, that can be a pretty strong love.
Oh, it was strong. And we had so much fun. Yeah. In fact, when we do public appearances, Leonard always says, do you remember that time? I said, Leonard, be careful what you say. You know, because we've known each other since we were children. So even though we're older now, we look at each other and it seems like everything goes away. You know, it's like just once you've actually worked with people, you bond in a certain way if it's a good experience. Sure. That no matter what you do and how many years, you still have a camaraderie that you don't get anywhere else, because they see you when you're your most vulnerable, when you're your most raw, when you're doing things together and you're working for this good of this outcome, and you know, you inspire each other, and it's a bond, like almost like, you know, when parents, even if they separate, they've had a child, that child is their bond. Mm-hmm. And it sounds corny, but when you're an actor and you do something especially like Jesus of Nazareth, I mean, Robert's portrayal on the cross, it just huge. I don't think, it can never be topped. Mm-hmm. You know, and Zeffirelli's passion for that whole project, it was such a hard shoot and so long, you know, 9 months in the desert. But it was just all those actors and all those egos in the desert all that time. You know, it was just, but it was, we became like a huge family. Mm-hmm. Anyway. So who was your first husband? My first husband was Dean Paul Martin, who was Dean Martin's son. Mm-hmm. And when he saw Romeo and Juliet, apparently he had said to one of his friends, you see that girl on the screen? He said, I'm going to marry her. That's the girl. And he flew to London with his manager, And, and I was back then, I was so conscious of people everywhere I went. We met at the Ritz Hotel in London because he got on the phone I had a manager who also managed the famous model Twiggy. And so Justin de Villeneuve called me up one afternoon, and I was very shy back then because there was so much attention brought to Romeo and Juliet. So I withdrew into a shell, and it took a lot to get me to go out with friends, and because people would stare at me. So I couldn't go out with my friends and get drunk and dance all night. I couldn't do things like that because so many people were aware. And Justin called me one afternoon. He said, Olivia, he said, I've got a friend of mine that I met when I was in California. I said, that's nice. And he said, he's just flown to London. He's got some business here, which at the time I didn't know. He really didn't have business. He had a couple of meetings he set up so he could meet me, but I didn't know that. And by then I was, I think, almost 17. I was 16 and a half. And Dino, who was my future husband, was 15, He was 15 years old, but very worldly. And so Justin said, will you say hello to him? I said, I don't meet people, Justin. I'm not very, and he's American. And he said, well, just say hello. He's really sweet. And I said, okay. And Dino got on the phone and said, hi. And I said, hello. And he said, I'm Dino. And I said, yes, I know. And there was silence. And then he said, I would love to invite you to go to dinner. If you could go to dinner anytime and anywhere you want, anywhere you pick, I would just love to meet you. I saw your performance and I said, I don't have dinner with people I don't know very well. And so he said, oh, well, what about breakfast? And I said, breakfast? I don't get up for breakfast. I like to get up late. He said, brunch, lunch, tea. And I said, well, so we agreed I'd go for tea to the, I think it was the Ritz Hotel. It was the Ritz or the Savoy, one of those two big hotels in London where he was staying. And so I was very nervous, and I agreed to do it because Justin was my new manager and I wanted to give a good impression. And Dino was very cute. He was sweet. He made me laugh, which was hard, And I took my girlfriend with me because I said, I'm not going to go to see him by myself, and so I took my friend with me, and we were sitting in the lobby, and we were watching people, and people were staring at me already, which was making me more and more nervous. And the elevator door opened, the lift, it opened up, and this blonde, all-American guy with teeth and a tan and a powder blue suit with a waistcoat and jacket and a gold chain hanging because he was into those watches, fob watches they were. and he came out all smiles, and I looked at my friend and I said, I bet that's him. and for some reason he walked right over to him. He said, what a joy. Hi, I'm Dino. And I said, yes, I knew as soon as you stepped out of the lift, and people were staring. He said, do you want to go and have some tea? And they have crumpets here, I've heard, and all kinds. And I said, there's so many people staring. And he said, listen, I've got a suite. Why don't we go and order tea up there, the three of us? I said, okay. He said, my manager's there. And, and so we went upstairs because so many people were staring at us, which was always the case, And he went and he ordered this big, I'm only telling this because this is how we met. It was a big, big tray full of, because I love to eat. I was a compulsive eater. I own it now. And I loved food. That was the quickest way to my heart, was through my stomach, And he had ordered this big plate full of assorted finger sandwiches like cucumber and watercress and all, and they were
real
so
tea.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, it was tea with crumpets and
clotted
fresh
cream.
Devon cream. Yes,
love that.
And strawberry jam, and it was wonderful. And as soon as the sandwiches got there, I proceeded to eat them. And I swear, I think he had one, and my friend ate a couple, and all the rest, I finished the whole plate off. And he said, I have to tell you, Olivia, I've never seen anyone eat this much in my whole life. I said, oh, this is nothing. And I was like proud of it. I said, I have an appetite like a horse. And he said, I can see that. He said, I've never seen this before. It's incredible. And so we left and we had that meeting. And then he wanted to take me out. And his manager at the time, Bill, his name was, when I walked out of the door, he turned to Bill. He said, I love her. He said, I'm going to marry her. It's going to take a few years, but I'm going to marry her. That's the woman I'm going to marry. And so 4 years later, we married. We became best friends first. And he'd come to London. He followed me to Rome, you know, and he never let me forget, because one day I was in Rome and I was in a discotheque, which I loved. I loved to go out dancing till 4 a.m. And and Dino said, I'm in Rome to meet Dino De Laurentiis. You want to, you know, meet for lunch? I said, yes, okay, where are we going? You know? And I went and I'd introduced her to my friend Martin Potter. Now, Martin Potter is an English actor to this day, sweet person. But Martin Potter and Hiram Keller did Fellini's great film Satyricon. Mm-hmm. And they were looping it there in Rome and shooting while I was filming. So, of course, I became friends with both of them. And I was at the bar chatting away, and I was young, but I wasn't drinking, you know, but I was there, you know, waiting for the dancing, and Martin was with me, and Dino walked in, and I said, oh, Dino, and I felt really bad. And I said, this is my friend Martin, and he's, you know, we're going to have dinner together, and maybe you and I can go out tomorrow, because I was young. I didn't know, you know. And Dino afterwards said, I knew he wasn't really, I think I introduced him as like a distant cousin or something like that, because I didn't want to hurt Dino's feelings. And then Dino became my confidant, my best friend. Mm. And when I came to LA, he was the first person to drive up to Rudy's house, you know, on Cielo Drive, the famous Sharon Tate house where I was staying when I first got here. And that's how it blossomed. It blossomed through. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, I like
guys like that.
Oh, he was very pure and very sweet. And one thing about me, I've had 3 marriages, but I've married 3 really lovely people. So they remain friends, even though. The next one was Akira Fusei. He was Japanese, the Frank Sinatra of Japan. He's still singing today, I believe. Oh. And I had Alex with Dino, my oldest son, and Alex Martin. And I had Max, my second son, with Akira Fusei, who's one of most incredible voice, kindest human being. He was a Buddhist. And that was I met him when I toured Japan for the first time. He sang the song to the commercial I had done, and we met on stage. Mm. And then, of course, after that, many years later, 1989, I met David, who is still my husband today. So, and you know David, he's wonderful. And then Akira, I walked out on stage, and I walked off the stage that time, and I said to my assistant, I'm in love. I wonder if he speaks English. Just like that. I looked at his eyes, and it's funny because that afternoon when I was in Japan promoting this big campaign, and Akira sang the song to it, you know, I had called my guru, Swami Muktananda, who was in South Fallsburg, Florida, near Gainesville. And I had called him because the manager that took me to Japan at the time, whose name I can't talk about, but he had cheated me very badly. And I found out about it. So when I was in Japan, it was a terrible experience for me. I was very upset because I knew that he was making more money than I was for the whole thing. And I called Muktananda, my guru, and through his translator, you know, I said, I was crying, and I said, Baba, things are so bad, and I'm working so hard, and this man has stolen so much. And Baba and out of the blue, he said, you know, Muktabai, which was my spiritual name, Muktabai, I performed 23 weddings this weekend. And I said, that's nice, Baba. And I thought, what is he telling me this for? Because I had sworn to him, I want to be a nun and I never want to marry again, you know. And Baba would go, oh, yes, I know. You know, and so he said, I performed 23 weddings this weekend. And then he quietly said, I see you're next on my list. And I said, who, me, Baba? No, Baba, never again. And he go, oh, I bless you. And I got off the phone 2 hours later. I walked on stage and Akira was singing. And I just looked at him and everything stopped. And I just thought, oh, I just love you. I just love you. And there was nothing to be done. I didn't know if he spoke English or not. And, you know, a year later, we were married. So, and then the same with David. When I saw David in Jerry's Deli in the valley here, he was in a rock and roll band at the time. He had this long blonde hair and just a rock and roller, and he was standing there with a friend of his. He'd come to breakfast, and I look over and he's holding his hand on his heart. And of course that got my attention. I thought, oh, he's so beautiful. From across, I was sitting with a boyfriend actually having breakfast, and my middle son. And I don't know, I just smiled at him. And the person I was with said, I saw you smiling at that guy. I said, which guy? But it was an instant, oh. And then a week, 10 days after that happened, I get something in the mail, a cassette tape and a letter. And when I picked it up, I saw the name David Glenn Isley on the outside of the envelope. And I thought, I wonder if that was that blonde man in Jerry's Deli. That shows how in touch you can be with, when you get those premonitions and those feelings. Yeah, it was just almost like I just knew. I knew that. I thought, he's the father of my third child, and I'm going to have a daughter, and I'm going to call her India in respect, in honor of my guru, Muktananda. So it was funny. It was just, those were meant to be. And I thank God in fact, if you look at the forward of my biography, I thank each one of my ex-husbands, but also David. I thank them for my children, so yes.
Well, I'm a big fan of your entire family, that's for sure. If you could have a magic wand, let's say, and you want to paint the future for yourself and your friends and your family, what would that
and for the world like? And for the world as well.
We'll go there next. So first,
okay, you know what? Other than I've had such bad luck, and people have. I don't really like to talk about it, but because I'm so trusting, and for some reason people are attracted to that, and they say the people that cheat you or hurt you are usually, they come under the guise of friends, not enemies, because you know who your enemies are. But when people come and they tell you they love you, and I've had a lot of bad luck with that. Even shooting Teresa in 2003, I was taken to court 3 times, and a lot of the wage that I worked so hard for, disappeared with attorneys, and I just had terrible luck. And then the business manager I had, he took my pension plan. I had a beautiful home which I owned completely, which I had to sell to pay debts. And I went from being comfortable, not wealthy, but comfortable with my pension plan, and to having nothing and being overdrawn at the bank. That was just constant along the way, Dr. Randall. You know how people can take advantage if they see that you, I think, have a good heart.
Yes, I know this story. I do.
I know you do.
And what I would like you to do is cast out into the future what you would like to see happen.
I would like to see some financial security where I don't have to worry about paying my bills all the time, because I'm older now and I could never make up what was stolen when I was 40 years old. You just don't. After 40, you don't work the way you did before 40. So I would like to see a release from stress of money problems. The rest of it all falls into place because I'm blessed. I have a very loving family. Yes. I'm very proud of my 3 children. David's helped me raise my sons along with their fathers. Honestly, I couldn't ask for more in that department. Mm-hmm. All our issues, if we bicker, if we argue, my children have been taught to be themselves above everything, that I don't know everything, that I'm learning as I go, just like they are. And I have a great rapport with my children, which I'm very, very proud of. When Alex first started going out, he was 16, 17, and he'd call me from parties here in Hollywood, and he'd say, Mom, he said, people are starting to pull drugs out, and can I take a cab home? And I say, absolutely, darling. And when he told his friends, whenever things get too hard, all I have to do is, sit and chat to my mom. Mm-hmm. She puts it all in perspective. So my children, thank God, don't have the vices and the things that happen when you've been ignored or you're not given enough attention, I believe. But at the same time, they have to learn their lessons and live their lives. I give them the space to be themselves.
Yeah.
So they're all very opinionated and very strong, which to me, I think is a gift. I respect them. They may be my children, but they're still human beings and separate of me. And they're here to fulfill their destinies, not mine.
I also have premonitions and feel into the future. And I just want to say that what you asked for, you shall receive.
Oh, God bless you. From your mouth to God's ears.
Now tell me what you would have for all of us here on this planet.
Oh, peace, kindness, no homelessness, no wars. Just stop eating meat, because it's just these animals are dying by the billions in the most cruel and horrific ways. And just, I know it sounds, we can make heaven on earth. Just by being kind, by loving people, by accepting that not everyone's perfect, but everyone's coming from their place of truth, and respect others. What's gone on, especially the last 4 years, has been just mind-boggling. The amount of lack of compassion, of kindness, of respect, and all the things that are so important.
But now the
a better world
pendulum
for our
is
children.
Swinging back with us, is coming back the other way. And
yes, more people of light. People have to be aware. This isn't all there is, Dr. Randall, as you know. We just continue our journey when we leave these bodies, and it's not what we've accumulated that matters. It's what we leave behind, the legacy. It's, and when people are nasty and they come from a bad place, it's probably because they're carrying a lot of hurt. And that's why Howard's prayers I find so healing, because they heal your lineage. They're free. They're there for the whole world. Yes, you can book private meetings with him, and, because people have to live. But his prayers are there and available, and they respect all religions. They're about gratitude, forgiveness, kindness, love. And Howard, like you, he lives what he preaches, what he says. He's like the perfect balance. And I strive every day when things get too difficult. I just say, remember what Howard says. Take it all with a grain of salt. Just be the best person you can be, and love God. God is real, and God is great. And God is a word, I believe, for the energy that lies within all of us.
Yes.
We are all God. We're all part of God. We get sent teachers along the way if we're open to that. But either way, it doesn't matter what political party or where you're born or what color your skin is, or it just doesn't matter. We're all spirits and souls dwelling in this body. And if I learned anything, or, look after your body and treasure it, because it is the temple of God. It is, and thank God people like you, integrative medicine is the future. It is now, because yes, conventional up to a point. I was so set against conventional. As you know, in 2008, I had breast cancer. And I refused. I had surgery, but I refused the chemo and the radiation. Never would I do that. Never. And I took supplements, and I did, eating properly. I changed all of my habits, except I didn't know about sugar, you see. And I found that in 2016, at the end of 2016, after I had met you, no, I hadn't met you yet. I found at the end of 2016 that I was having a hard time breathing, and I'd been cancer-free for 9+ years. 9 years. And I started not being able to breathe well, and I didn't know what was happening. And I was still, I had lessened on the supplements, and I just, and I had a cough, and I thought, well, maybe I need antibiotics. So I went into this UCLA place, and I had an X-ray, and they were taking so long to get back to me. And David and I were sitting there waiting for the results because I was coughing, and I didn't know what it was. And the doctor came in and said, she took a chair and said, I'm sorry to tell you this, but there's a huge mass in your chest. And it seems to be blocking your airways a lot, and it's rising upwards. It's a mass. So you need to go, to an oncologist. You have to. And I just sat there and in shock. I just said, after 9 years, this has come back again. So obviously I haven't learned whatever lesson that disease was giving me. And that's when I left the doctor's office with David, and I called immediately from the car. I called Howard in Kauai, and I said, Howard, I have a mass in my chest. He said, you have to come here for a month. You have to stay here. And I said, it's not easy. He said, Olivia, you have to come here. You have to stay here, breathe the fresh air, do the prayers. You have to be here for a month. And, I went there. That's where I was blessed in that I met you. I walked into the room and I see this lady with beautiful white hair and glowing eyes and this aura of gold around you, Dr. Randall. You were just so precious. And I thought, what a lovely lady. I wonder what she does. I didn't know, And I stayed there a month, and Howard couldn't take away the mass that was going, because as you know, he can remove a lot of things many times depending on the content of people. He just does the prayers and God does the rest. It's not him, it's the power that works in him, the energy.
And I feel that the work you guys did ultimately lead to it going away.
Well, it did. You know why? I was going to say, because
and then in
Howard
addition, the work that we did on top of it.
Yes, but Howard gave me the strength to be open to anything. He said, I've done everything I can do. Go back to LA and the road will open. All I know is it's not your time to leave. You have too much work to do. And you just go back to LA, the right thing will happen. Mm-hmm. And I didn't go to you yet.
Remember, I had the same experience. He said, you didn't come here for me to heal you. As a matter of fact, I got worse while I was there.
Yeah. Yes.
Then I had to go home in a wheelchair. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes. I remember.
You came here for me to teach you how to heal yourself and others, to add this to what you already do. And it absolutely did.
He was right.
Look at us now, right?
Well, I was so against chemotherapy and radiation and, conventional medicine. And he said, be open to whatever God sends to you. Whatever God sends to you, take it and learn from it and just do it. And I will be praying for you. I will be there. Say your prayers. Just don't change. It's not your time. That's what I feel. That's what he said. I came back to LA, and out of the blue, a girlfriend called me and said, I've been thinking about you. I haven't talked to you for 2 years. How are you? And I said, I think I'm dying. By then the growth thing had come right, where that collarbone is, right where you swallow, there where that little thing is. And it was growing upwards. And, when I went to the conventional doctor, the oncologist, he said, you were really, honestly, Olivia, you were 9-10 days away from that closing up. And then we would have had to have put a tracheal or whatever that thing is, because you wouldn't have been able to breathe. I was turning blue by the time I got to him. But out of the blue, my girlfriend called me and said, I found this place in Beverly Hills and your insurance covers it and you need to go in there. And they got cancer. There was a 3-month waiting list. They got cancellations. I did everything. They found out what it was. And he said, you're going to have to do radiation and chemotherapy. And I said, whatever I have to do, I'll do it. I want to live more than anything. And I did it. And it did help. It helped to shrink that mass down to the size of like a little bigger than a walnut in the center of my chest. We couldn't do surgery because it was between my heart and my lung. And to do the radiation, they had to pierce one of my lungs. And I still have issues from that. But it did shrink down. And then I said, what do I do now? And I remembered you. And I talked to Howard, and Howard said, call Dr. Randall. I've told her what's going on, and call Dr. Randall. And I said to you, and I called you, and my life changed. It was, your supplements, your wisdom, the way you talk to me, you didn't just sit there and write a prescription and for 15 minutes after me waiting in the waiting room an hour. You weren't like that. You walk in, you heal the body, the mind, the spirit. You heal every part of a human being. And that's the medicine of now, of the future. Because it's not just about writing prescriptions. It's about taking care of the whole person. Because cancer is not just something you can just take something and heal. Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing, I'm learning. It's your emotions are tied into it, your lineage, your body on a cellular level, all these things that, and I can't tell you enough. I've been taking your supplements since the end of 2017. Mm-hmm. And I feel I get bad days and good days because I do have the damage from the radiation, mm-hmm. which causes, I've still got that going on. But I feel so grateful. I can't tell you. I'm so grateful. I just wish everybody that had cancer would just come to you or come to another, although for me, you're the best, but whoever they can go to to be open to both, mm-hmm. to do what you have to do. But part of the cancer thing is very much supplements and healing yourself. Whatever caused cancer in the first place, it's not about just the tumor, it's what caused the tumor. Mm-hmm. Very simply put, because I'm not a doctor, but that's how I felt. If you take care of whatever caused it, then of course it may not come back.
Right.
You just have to, and because I am so reactive and I am highly sensitive, things can come back very easily because I take things so much to heart. But I tell you, I could not be where I am today if it wasn't for Howard's prayers, along with your healings and your supplements. And you spent almost 3 hours with me the first time, talking to me, finding out how I was and what made me tick. And then you ordered the blood test and urine and and the basic tests and things, but you knew exactly how to balance, and we keep going, don't we? Mm-hmm. And I can't tell you enough. I don't talk a lot. I don't give a lot of interviews anymore. And it's just an honor and a joy to tell people about you. Well, everyone should know. It's the truth. It's just the truth.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, yes. Olivia. And thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
I hope I didn't talk too much.
It's so moving. It's so interesting and moving. And like I said in the beginning, it's because of who you are. And you are full of light, and you're a light worker.
Thank
through
you.
Your work.
As are you. Yes.
And your teachers and what.
Well, because may I just say this one thing, that when I told my guru, my Indian guru, Swami Muktananda, I want to become a sannyasi, he looked at me, he said, your work is touching people through your art. Uh-huh. That's what you do. He said, you don't realize it, but playing the Divine Mother of Jesus, what an honor. How many actresses get that honor?
Right.
What an honor. You played the Mother of Christ. I mean, and Mother Teresa.
And that's what I'm saying.
Yes,
and even if you hadn't played her,
yes,
you have that vibration, and you share that with us. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure, my joy. And I wish for everybody that everybody would feel the bliss that I feel when I talk about you and Howard and Baba and Jesus. And I'm just very grateful for my life, and I'm grateful to be here. And I hope I can get so strong that when this pandemic is over, which it will be, I can start going out and meeting fans. And, I've got this whole web page going up and all of this, and we'll advertise it when the time comes. And it isn't over till it's over.
That's
Age
right.
is right? I feel like I'm 30 years old.
I have this program called Adding Years and Growing Younger. So.
Exactly. That's what it is. You just get better with age. You do. If you think the right thoughts, and above everything, be kind and be compassionate, because people are coming from their realities, and what causes people to be in
that people give you. People are giving you love. Allow it in. It's for you.
It's for all of us. We all are one, really. And it sounds corny, but that's the truth.
That's the end of my book. If you read it,
Well, I'm dying to read you, but I haven't read your book yet. I don't have it
but
yet.
that is the
But
end
I'm
of my
going
book,
to, yes.
that we are all
yes.
one.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know, and that doesn't matter what color you are, what creed you are, what gender you are, what politics you are, that we are all one and part of God. So.
Exactly. And why feel hate and anger when you can feel love and bliss?
Right.
That feels much better.
Yeah. So with that, I think we should go now. And I'll talk to you soon, honey. Okay?
Oh, yes, you will. I love you with all my heart. God bless you.
Say hi to everybody for me. Okay.
God bless.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This is the Soul Doctor. I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to a new product and a new company, which I find to be extremely healing and amazing. As you know, I'm a master of 20 different healing modalities. Now I may start calling it 21. These bath salts are Dead Sea bath salts, all organic and imbued with essential oils that are extremely powerful, including lavender, eucalyptus, mint, and more. Look at the website, bathsalt.com, or call me. Very healing. Something we need right now for relaxation.